Have a sleep.
No, I want bed.
You're sick.
No, I don't.
You're sick.
No.
I think we all knew this, except for feminists, that fathers matter. 85% of youths in prison come from fatherless homes. 71% of high school dropouts come from fatherless homes. 90% of all homeless and runaway children are from fatherless homes. 60% of youth suicides are from fatherless homes. Do I need to continue?
I was taking care of these little kids one afternoon, and so this little guy came in, and he was about 3 years old.
When I had come home that day, that kid was standing in the porch by himself, looking miserable while the other kids were playing. Anyways, Tammy fed him, and he got right to the bottom of the bowl and finished it. And she said, "Look, you finished it. Look what you did." And he just lit up into a huge smile.
Oh, that's going to make me cry.
Yeah, oh, it's
That's
worse.
so
It's
sad.
worse. It's worse.
He wasn't
then-
toilet trained yet.
Yeah. He followed Tammy around for the rest of the
it's
day
terrible.
like a puppy. Like he was right on her path. And then
Yeah. When we sat down, we used to go downstairs and watch Disney, and he sat on my knee.
he climbed right up on her and grabbed her like that little monkey clinging to the wire mother in the famous experiments. And then, Jesus Christ, his mother came home and came downstairs, and she saw this kid clinging to Tammy, and she said, "Oh, super mom," and grabbed him by the hand and left.
Hollywood masculinity. Yeah, we need to talk. Your men have won the Woman of the Year award too many times. And I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I just don't think you see me for who I am. You want progressive masculinity to lead this century. But there's only so far a man can get in high heels. I thought we could weather this together, but we both want different things. You want broken boys who stay boys, and I want our boys to become brave men. And in parents, we've had enough.
We have.
We know we have the power to defend the truth and raise up strong men who leave legacies for generations to come. And because we know that the raising of our children falls on us, not you. So I'm standing up in this endless torrent for a different kind of man.
So good.
I'm standing for
So
boys who are
good.
men in the making, and for fathers who lead their families in truth. So goodbye, emasculated celebrities. Goodbye, neglected responsibilities. And goodbye, glorifying instant gratification. It's not us. It's you.
I think that it's the sign of the degeneration of a society when single parenthood becomes anything approximating the norm. It's not a good idea. And part of the reason I believe that, and I think this has to do with the overwhelming selfishness of modern life, is that marriage isn't for the people who are married. It's for the children, obviously. And like, if you can't handle that, grow the hell up. No, I mean seriously.
Yeah, okay.
Seriously. Once you have kids, it is not about you. Period. Now that doesn't mean it isn't about you at all. But that just seems so self-evident to me. I can't believe that anybody would even question it.
Oh, it's been questioned.
Oh yes,
It's
well I'm
horrible.
certainly aware of it.
Girls with no fathers in the home have lower self-esteem. Okay, fine, that sucks, but also women with low self-esteem are more promiscuous. No father families more likely to be victims of abuse, especially with single mothers. The more opportunities a child has to interact with biological father, the less likely they are to commit a crime or have contact with the juvenile justice system. Okay, another way to say that is men and women who are incarcerated, the population of the prisons mostly encompass fatherless homes. Now, here's something that no one else has mentioned, which I think is cool, and I don't really say this eloquently. If a man and wife raise a child, they're less likely to end up in jail, but they have the same statistical chance as children raised by just their father. So if we want to keep children, adults, out of prison, mother, father, or just father. Well, we don't want to hear just father, so let's try to keep the families intact. I think that just seems better.
And that was because an educated mind cannot be enslaved. So the fact that our schools are in this condition in the inner cities and all throughout America and not a single candidate is talking about it is problematic to me. Another component, and this is the biggest issue that I think is facing Black America today, is father absence. We have children that are growing up without their fathers in the home, and that is being incentivized by the government right now via the welfare system. And the government says we'll give you more money if you don't marry the father of your children. You are incentivizing bad behavior in our community. What happens when you remove a father from the home? You're 9 times more likely to end up in prison, you're 6 times more likely to drop out of high school, and you're 12 times more likely to lead a life of poverty. Why is nobody talking about father absence, and why do we keep being silent when we actually do?
We left before the Civil War, but I'm an only child. My mom is a single parent, never had a father. Let me tell you something. When you lose a father, you become a man. But when you lose a mother, you become an orphan. Wow. My mom died in the beginning of the pandemic, and I've been an orphan since then. And I never had a father, never felt the difference.
So if you didn't grow up having a relationship with a father, what are your values as a father, basically?
Well, look, there are 2 schools of life. Some tell you if you have been abused, you're going to do the same thing in the future. And the other school says if you learned what you were missing, you would make sure you would never miss it. And that's what I made sure for my kids. They would never miss a father. So I coached them when they played baseball for 10 years. I'm always present. I worked hard, but I was always there on the weekend, the trips and all that. And they remember me as always being there. So to me, my reaction was like, don't do what was done to you.
Divorce in my immediate family, you know, and certainly in my extended family. My sister's been divorced, my brother's been divorced, my daughter's been divorced. Every family has people in it who are single or who are widowed or who are in gay relationships. I mean, the family is an ideal that's breached more than it's adhered to, but that doesn't mean you get to sacrifice the ideal. No. The ideal still has to stay. And then we have to live with the tension between the ideal and the fragments that surround it that actually make up, well, even if you're in a dedicated marriage. I mean, there's been times in my marriage with my wife where our relationship was very tense. So we moved away from the ideal, but you don't throw out the ideal just because it's difficult to attain and because it excludes what's not ideal, because then you destroy everything. If you have no ideal, there's nothing to work for. And the notion that we can somehow move beyond the minimal nuclear family, I just don't think there's any evidence for that whatsoever. And I would also say that when contemplating that, we might want to look at those who are truly the most vulnerable and victimized, and the ones who are most vulnerable and victimized by the breakdown of the nuclear family are 100% children. It's plain and absolutely simple. Children without fathers, for example, do way worse. And that if the evidence that's been accrued on that side isn't convincing to you, then no evidence about anything ever would be convincing about anything.
Although the alternative view to that would be that you are stigmatizing single mothers by saying that, because actually you could have an extremely...
I am stigmatizing single mothers.
Is that a problem, though, if you have a strong and empowered woman who is bringing up a family in the absence of a father who actually maybe their absence is welcome, maybe the dad wasn't a good influence, you'd arguably be better off with the strong mother than 2 weak parents.
Well, there's obviously exceptional cases where the exception is the preferable alternative.
Yeah.
Obviously. Well, that's the decision that people make when they get divorced. You know, most people who get divorced aren't happy with it, but they accept the broken marriage as the reality that's preferable to the continuation of the relationship. And I've certainly had couples, for example, or people in my clinical practice for whom the divorce was clearly the right alternative. And they were married to people who were narcissistically psychopathic, who were making their lives absolute hell. But that doesn't mean that you get to escape from the ideal without the price of stigmatization. You can do a good job as a single mother, but that doesn't make it an ideal.
Final question. Which of your 12 rules for life do you think is the most important?
Tell the truth, or at least don't lie. Yeah, you know, if people are wondering, even people who labor under the burden of genuine oppression, if they're wondering what they can do to set the world right, one of the things you can do to set the world right that you could do is you could stop lying. By your own judgment of what constitutes a lie. It's somewhat different than telling the truth, you know, because what do you know about the truth? The truth, that's hard. But you could cease to utter words you know to be false. And by doing so, you would cease to tilt things towards hell, right? And that's actually quite the moral accomplishment. And it has a much larger effect than you might think. I've talked literally to thousands, particularly young men, but but not only. Thousands of young people around the world who've told me that they decided at some point in the last 4 or 5 years to stop lying, and that their lives entirely transformed. And they usually say that in something like a state of shock, because many of them were in dismal and dreadful places and are doing so much better now that they actually can't believe it. So that's a lovely thing to see.
Jordan Peterson, thank you very much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
We've created a generation of narcissistic women. And what's happened is the rise of social media and the rise of online dating and the rise of feminism has taught women that they are not to blame for any poor choices. Every poor choice is glamorized. So if you want to be a sex worker, it's great. If you want to post in bikini pictures online, it's fine. If you want to be in with it, every poor choice is glamorized, and every internal reflection is seen as gaslighting yourself. So they've even got terms for internal reflection to prevent it happening. And so what will happen is they are trained to not reflect on themselves, because we've been told we've been oppressed for so many years. Now it's time to make sure we project. And so we don't take any accountability. And as a result, when we get into relationships, if we don't feel completely soothed all the time, he must be a narcissist. He must be a manipulator. He must be gaslighting. He, rather than I.
I know when my kids were going to school, for example, this was quite a while ago now, they were forbidden to pick up snow on the off chance they might throw a snowball. And we know how terrible that is. So what I told my son is that he was perfectly welcome to pelt any teacher he wanted to in the back of the head with a snowball, as long as he was willing to suffer the consequences of doing it. And I don't know if he ever did, but he was certainly happy with the idea, which made me very happy about him. So, yeah. So, you know, kids need to do this. They really, really seriously need to do this. It's what civilizes them. And that needs to happen between the ages of 2 and 4, because if they're not civilized by the time they're 4, then you might as well just forget it. And that's a horrible statistic, but it's unbelievably well borne out in the relevant developmental literature. Like, there's lots of aggressive 2-year-olds, most of them are male. And if they stay aggressive past the age of 4, they tend to be lifetime aggressive. They make no friends, they're outcasts, they're much more likely to end up antisocial, criminal, delinquent, and in jail. And so your kids need to be socialized between the ages of 2 and 4. And that's particularly true for the more aggressive males. And most of the aggressive 2-year-olds are male. And that isn't socialization, by the way. So there's a more abstract representation of the same sort of thing. And I'm trying to make the case that the hierarchy of authority emerges out of a game-like matrix, an underlying game-like matrix. And that's one of the things that's so brilliant about Jean Piaget. He figured that out. It's so smart. And he was interested in the biological origin of morality. The people that I've seen who've been really hurt have been hurt mostly by deceit. And that's also worth thinking about, that, you know, you get walloped by life. There's no doubt about that. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But I've thought for a long time that maybe people can handle earthquakes and cancer and even death, maybe. But they can't handle betrayal, and they can't handle deception. They can't handle having the rug pulled out from underneath them by people that they love and trust. That just does them in. You know, it makes them ill, but it hurts them, you know, psychophysiologically. It damages them. But more than that, it makes them cynical and bitter and vicious and resentful. And then they also start to act all that out in the world, and that makes it worse. So you know, the story starts, God uses the spoken truth to create being that is good.